What is going on, everyone? And thank you for listening to another week of the Incline Dodgers. Your World Series champion Dodgers are off to a 14-4 start, and you'll definitely take that because they have the best record in Major League Baseball, of course. But I wanted to start with Jake Reiner on this because the offense is not doing too well these days. They just came off a 1-0 victory against the Seattle Mariners. They split that series. Corey Seager drove in the only run of that game. But Jake, what's going on with the offense?
It's so insane to me that the Dodgers are 14-4 and they're not even playing well. Like they have a couple of bad injuries with, Betts has been out of the lineup a few days. Bellinger's been injured pretty much since the beginning of the season. But yeah, the Dodgers are not swinging the bat particularly well. And the lineups that they're putting out there are a little, suspect. I mean, when you've got the bottom of the order with Pollock and Rayleigh and McKinstry and Rios and Gavin Lux, who's injured, but like that bottom of the order is just kind of weak. And Corey Seager, though, like you mentioned, coming through, he's been coming through pretty much, all season with runners in scoring position. He's hitting 368 with an OPS over 1,000. Max Muncy is hitting 389 with an OPS over 1,000 with runners in scoring position. And Justin Turner and Chris Taylor and Zach McKinstry. And those five are the only ones that are really coming through in key spots. The rest of the guys are just not. And we'll get into the splits a little later, but yeah, it's a little concerning thus far how they've just not capitalized on these opportunities.
David Rosenthal, what's been your takeaway with this Dodgers offense or team thus far?
Yeah, it's interesting, Kevin, because they have such a strong record, but they're not even close to playing up to their potential offensively. They're not in the top 10 in hard hit percentage or in barrel percentage, which normally indicates, you're hitting the ball hard and far and it's going to work out for you. But the reason they've been able to win these games is because they're getting on base. They are second in Major League Baseball in on base percentage, and they're third in weighted on base percentage. So while they're not necessarily hitting the ball well, they are still getting on base. And that is what has led to the scoring opportunities. They may not be hitting a ton of home runs, but their ability to get on base paired with, sporadic hitting from Corey Seager and Max Muncy getting on base and basically an MVP campaign so far from Justin Turner is what has led to the Dodgers' success offensively, albeit not tremendous success, but good enough to get the job done.
Yeah, Justin Turner might be the best bat in this lineup right now. 381 batting average to kick it off with 5 home runs, 16 RBIs. He's never done anything like that in his career for the Dodgers. So at his age, this is amazing. Just the fountain of youth that Turner's found. But I want to talk about this team against lefties because it's bad. And part of it, I think, has to do with Pollock and Smith not doing their part. But over the last 6 games for the Dodgers, they're hitting 171 against left-handed pitchers with 7 home runs and 26 runs scored. There's only one team doing worse, and that's the New York Yankees.
Yeah, and if you take a look at what their numbers are versus left-handed starters overall, they're hitting 195 with a 651 OPS. I mean, it's and I think I even mentioned it to you guys over text, but it just doesn't seem to make very much sense to me how year in and year out over the last few years the Dodgers have not been able to hit lefties, and we've seen a bunch of different players on this team, on these rosters. So it doesn't really make much sense why they can't get it done. The guys that are supposed to be good at hitting left-handed pitching, like AJ Pollock and Will Smith, are just not doing that. The guy we had last year that did it well was Kike Hernandez. He's no longer on the team, but even he wasn't that great last year in those situations. We just have, I just think that we have too many lefties on this team, and the right-handed bats are not performing when we need them to against left-handed pitching. That is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sheldon Noisy's off to a bad start as well. 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, and that's definitely would be a catalyst if he could get it going. But That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also like if you're putting Will Smith in the middle of this lineup, and unfortunately he's off to a pretty bad start with runners in scoring position. He's only hitting 1 for 13
yeah.
with runners in scoring position, which is an 0.77 batting average, which translates to not good.
And he's 1 for 20 in general with runners on. So he's got to pick it up. I know he got robbed by Dylan Moore. That could have been 2 runs right there. That was some serious bad luck. So I'll give him a break on that because anyone should have made that hit. But yeah, other than that, if you're going to be batting cleanup, you need to start driving runs in.
Yeah, this is a tale as old as time. It doesn't matter who's out there. The Dodgers probably will struggle against a left-handed pitcher. And I don't know. I honestly can't tell you why. It doesn't make any sense. But look, when it comes down to it, I'm not too concerned because this team has shown that they can, when it matters most, that they can perform. I think the one most confusing aspect of these struggles versus left-handers is Mookie Betts. You go back to 2018. This dude hit 368 with a 1.207 OPS against left-handed hitters, and then every single year since then, 2019 271 with an 839 OPS. Last year 200 average 531 OPS, and this year obviously small sample size, he's only 2 for 11. So I think I don't know what it is, frankly, with Betts and left-handed hitters. But, being the second best player in baseball, I think that is what he's going to focus on. And he's going to be the one to figure it out. And if anyone can figure it out, it'll be him. It'll certainly be him before, we're going to count on guys like Noisy and sadly, AJ Pollock.
But yeah, I mean, there are, like I mentioned, there are guys that are performing with runners in scoring position and guys that we don't normally would rely so heavily on, but because of the injuries to this team, we've had to, which are Zach McKinstry. He's hitting 429 with runners in scoring position with a 900 OPS. I mean, he has come through in so many, not only in so many situations, but in late key situations that we either need an insurance run or a go-ahead run. He's been awesome. And also Chris Taylor's gotten off to a really great start.
Yeah, Justin Turner is probably our best bat against lefties. Thank God he's hitting 391 with a 500 on base. And there were actually years in the past where Turner couldn't hit lefties. I think 2016 was one of those years, but Turner is just on fire. He is probably the MVP of this team right now, or Corey Seager. But I want to talk about the Mookie Betts situation. Thankfully, yesterday, Dave spoke to the media and they're optimistic that Betts will be in the lineup against the Padres Thursday night. But that pitch by Montero was one of the most malicious Bush League things I've seen against the Dodgers in quite some time. I don't think the intent was to hit Mookie Betts per se, but I do think it was a retaliation to warn him off because of what happened to Ty France earlier in that game when May accidentally hit him. You could see the catcher setting his mitt up way inside, and unfortunately Mookie's forearm was in the way because I think they meant to pitch to him inside to kind of back him up. And Montero, you can suck it because that was uncalled for.
I don't know. I don't think he's trying to do anything in that situation. It was a late game situation and it's a tight ball game. You're not, you don't want to put Mookie Betts on base. Like,
yeah, there's no way. Yeah, he was setting up inside and maybe the pitch got away from him, but there's absolutely no intent with that pitch. This is the 9th inning, I believe, in a 1 or 2 run game. You're not putting Mookie Betts on so you can face Corey Seager with a man on base. Absolutely not.
There was no reaction by Montero. He didn't look guilty. He didn't look like he felt bad whatsoever.
Yeah, it's too bad though that obviously when you get hit by a pitch, it's a bit of a freak accident or as Kevin says, it's intentional, but there's not much you can do about those types of injuries. But like with Betts and his back stiffness as well and getting hit here, it's a little concerning so far this season. I kind of wish that because last year we didn't have to worry about Mookie Betts. Like he was just, as healthy and you can depend on him. But when you don't have him and Bellinger in the lineup, I mean, that's why you get these numbers that we're getting with runners in scoring position, because they can't knock in runs if they're not getting those opportunities, if they're not on the field. So yes, they can survive. The Dodgers can survive without one of them for a while, but both of them, that's tough.
Yeah, no kidding. And thankfully, the defense has been doing its part in the outfield. Don't know if I can say the same on the infield. They've been a little rough at times. Corey Seager made an error that was costly. Chris Taylor made a huge error that was costly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Muncie's
what's
been
going
doing
on? Tighten
Muncie's
it
doing
up.
fine, thankfully. But
Let me ask you guys this question. Do you think, I mean, this could be a stupid question, but like, do you think because the Dodgers are putting these guys in different positions pretty much every game now that it's sort of messing with their ability to be solid? I mean, Corey Seager obviously plays shortstop every day, but I mean, like guys like Chris Taylor and McKinstry, who's having to kind of figure out right field without Betts in there. I mean, it's tough for these guys. We know that they can play multiple positions, but when you're asking them to do that every single day in a starting role, because remember, McKinstry and Chris Taylor are supposed to be guys coming off the bench. Pollock, Betts, and Bellinger are supposed to be the guys out there in the outfield. I mean, that's how it's set up. So when you have these guys coming in and day out, playing at a different spot every day, it could mess up defensive rhythm.
Yeah, I mean it could. But look, Chris Taylor's been playing all around the diamond his entire career with the Dodgers. So in terms of their Chris Taylor side of things, no. Look, I saw the error obviously that Chris Taylor made, and that was a bad bounce. That was a weird bounce. He was shaded in the shift, kind of up the middle. So I think that's just, those things happen. It's a 162 game season. No one's going to have, a perfect fielding percentage. So I'm not making a huge deal out of this. If anything, if there's one guy to be concerned about his defense, it is Corey Seager. But that's been the case for, the last couple of years.
yeah, I mean, Chris Taylor overall is a great defender. Obviously, losing Kike, he seemed to be the master of playing any position or any time. He almost never made an error. Obviously, Chris Taylor made a costly error in the World Series last season. He was playing second one game, then they had to move him to center field because Bellinger's back was sore. So I do think it could throw him off at times. So, but it's rare. So I think you got to just kind of shoot your shot because at the majority of the times Taylor's going to succeed and you'll have occasional flukes, but that's most players. So it is what it is.
I will say this though, the fact that the Dodgers are 14-4 and we're talking about all their deficiencies right now, and any of these deficiencies would cripple any other franchise, but because the Dodgers are so stacked and their depth is on display pretty much every single game, that's why you have a 14-4 record. Not to mention the starting pitching has been immaculate and the bullpen's been really solid.
And what's even crazier about that is those 4 losses, you can go back and think that this is why they lost. Aside from opening day, that performance was just bad. But the other three losses, you got a Kenley Jansen blown save, you have a Corey Seager error that basically cost them the game, and then you have a Chris Taylor error that basically cost them the game. If those things don't happen, they have 1 loss on the entire season without hitting well. But yeah, pitching wise, I don't know if we still want to go into hitting, but I would like to talk about Clayton Kershaw for a second whenever we get a chance.
I think it's pitching time.
All right. So Kershaw, I got some numbers for you guys. Obviously, the opening day start was not something to write home about, but on the year, he's 3-1 with a 2.19 ERA, 24 strikeouts in 24 innings. If you take out the opening day start, that's 3 starts. He's gone 19 innings, given up 1 run, 22 strikeouts, 2 walks since opening day. But the thing I want to highlight this year that's different from last year is his slider usage. In 2020, he used his slider 39.9% of the time. This year, he's using it 46.6% of the time. And you pair that with his fastball usage, last year 41%, this year 37%. There's a success right there. His slider has been his money pitch this year. Obviously, curveball is going to be his best pitch no matter what it is. But the slider is why Clayton Kershaw is having success. We've talked about it extensively on previous episodes, how even if he doesn't have the velocity, if he tinkers with the slider velocity when he doesn't have his fastball velocity, it's still effective. And he's been pounding the inside part of the zone to right-handed hitters with his slider, backdoor sliders, everything. And that has given him tremendous success this year. And he's putting on a Cy Young campaign so far.
Yeah, there are 4 I'll go 4 possible Cy Young pitchers right now in this lineup. Trevor Bauer's off to a 2-0 start. He should be 4-0 for what it's worth. He has a
Yep,
242.
he hasn't left. Every time he's left the game, the Dodgers have had the lead.
Exactly. Yep. 36 strikeouts over 26 innings with a 2.42 ERA. Walker Buehler's 1-0 with a 2 ERA. And I saw some people online thinking that he's struggling. If you're struggling with a 2 ERA, I can't wait to see what he does later this season. I know there are some people curious why his fastball velocity is down. It's still averaging 95, which to me, if you learn the routine with Walker Buehler, he's not an April pitcher. He just continues to build himself up as the season progresses, and I don't see it changing this year. I'll take the start from Buehler thus far because I'm sure it's going to come where he has one of his blow up games because that just comes every April or early May. So watch out for that. Julio Urias is a star right now. He is 3-0 with a 2.81 ERA. He's coming off a career high 11 strikeouts against the Seattle Mariners. He is just on a tear right now. And I think the big thing with Urias is the changeup usage. He's getting a lot of soft contact and whiffs with that, as well as just mastering that slurve. He no longer throws the slider like he used to. He now throws that slider curveball, which is just really deceptive and getting a lot of hitters off balance. And his velocity, I saw him up to 96 yesterday. I had to remember Urias throwing that hard ever during a regular season start. And then, of course, Dustin May, 1-1, 2.93 ERA, 22 strikeouts over 15.1 innings pitched. So it looks like May is also generating a lot more whiffs. That was kind of something we were curious about early in his career, but he's generating strikeouts himself.
Yeah, and if the defense played a little better behind him, it would be a different story. I think that Julio Urias definitely gets slept on, not only by the rest of Major League Baseball, but by Dodgers fans as well. I mean, he's not one of those attention-grabbing, frontline starters that you want to talk about, like a Buehler or Kershaw or Bauer or even Dustin May with his fiery red hair. I mean, he is like a silent assassin out there. He was just carving up the Seattle Mariners lineup the other day. And I thought he could have gone the distance. He's never done that in his career, which makes sense because the Dodgers have kind of held him back a little bit in the beginning of his career. But man, career high 11 strikeouts. The guy was dominating. You mentioned that slurve pitch. That is nasty, just nasty. And that changeup is unhittable. I mean, I am so happy for Julio Urias because last year was sort of like his quote unquote debut as a Dodgers starter. And there were some, issues in the first inning that we all talked about, but the three of us all said, to our credit, like, for as good as Urias is, that is not going to be the narrative the rest of his career. He's just too good. There was no real reason why he was struggling so much in the first inning. I thought it was a complete fluke. And now you see what's going on. He's completely dominating any lineup that comes in his path. And he was just untouchable the other day against the Mariners.
Yeah, my one take on Urias, and then I want to talk about Buehler for just a minute. He, ever since the 2020 playoffs, he carries himself like he's the best pitcher in baseball. The demeanor, the confidence on the mound, you can see it. He goes out up there knowing he's going to get hitters out, and we hadn't seen that from him until last year in the playoffs, and it is awesome to see. I mean, he is walking with confidence. He's doing K struts. He knows he's getting these guys out, and it's it's completely contributing to his success. He is a completely, I don't know what clicked in his mind, but it's like he woke up one day and just decided, I'm that dude, and I'm going to get you out. And it's it's pretty awesome to see. But on the Buehler train, I do want to give a little bit of light into. He hasn't been as sharp as we've seen him before. Yes, he has the 2 ERA. His expected ERA, however, is 4.74. His FIP is 3.35, and his expected FIP is 4.02. So what does that mean? Technically, he's been pitching into some good luck. And he's been good. He's kept the Dodgers in games. He hasn't surrendered a ton of earned runs, obviously. But could he be sharper? Yes. We're going to see Buehler get sharper. if I had to pick one guy on the Dodgers roster who I could not be less worried about, even if he gave up 10 runs for the next 2 months, it would be Walker Buehler. Because once that postseason starts, it's a different story for him.
Exactly. The bullpen is doing their thing too. They've been pretty strong. They had a couple hiccups. Corey Knebel blew a save. That was unfortunate against the Padres. But Kenley Jansen, what the heck? Throwing 97 now? I don't know what's going on in 2021 with Jansen, but I mean, one game, he can't throw a strike to save his life. He's throwing 90. It's all over the plate. Now you give him 2 days rest. And I know Jake's the biggest advocate on this. Now he's throwing 97 completely. And it seems like he's throwing like a sinker or four-seamer more now and less dependent on the cutter, occasional slider. So he's becoming more of a pitcher.
That one cutter to Kyle Lewis was just devastating. The thing moved like just unbelievable movement on that pitch. But yeah, I mean, I'm the biggest proponent of giving Kenley Jansen as much rest as he needs. I think he knows that he's getting that rest. And I think he knows that once he goes out there on the mound, it's go time and it's time to empty that tank. And I love that. That is what we know is a recipe for success. We know that when you put him out there in back-to-back games, he doesn't do well. The command is not there. The velocity's not there, but you give him a few days off. Keep in mind, he's 33 years old. I mean, he is, an older pitcher. So we got to treat him that way. And when you do, you get the results. And as I said many, many times before, this is what you got to do with Kenley Jansen. And boom, you've got a dominant closer, once every 2 games or once every 3 games. And the Dodgers bullpen has enough closers in there to get the job done. We mentioned Knebel, unfortunate against the Padres. That was a really bad blown save, but typically he's been great. Trinan's been great. Victor Gonzalez, any one of those guys can shut the door in the 9th. You don't need Kenley out there every night. And I think the Dodgers have finally realized that.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse because we've talked about this and I completely agree. But I will say it is going to be a big boost to the bullpen to get Gratterall back. He's going to be able to mix in, the 7th or 8th or 9th innings, give some other guys, some less usage. You don't have to rely on Knebel and Trinan every time you have a 1 or 2 run lead. His first outing in San Diego wasn't great, but that's what it was, his first outing of the year.
Yep.
But he's gonna be a big boost to the pen.
I love that Dave Roberts threw him into the fire there in San Diego. I respected that.
But you know what? You said Dave Roberts. So let me get on this rant. Dave Roberts needs to get ejected. These umpires have been disgusting. I'm tired of this. Go out there, go yell at Tom Hallion, Mr. Ass in the Jackpot umpire, get in his face, get thrown out, make a statement to your players, and that's it. You got Bob Guerin to handle the rest of the game. I'm tired of nice guy Dave. I really am. He needs to get his ass out there and get thrown out. It's ridiculous.
I don't know about that. It's got maybe the Profar thing, which I know we're going to talk about later.
No, I'm talking about the strike zone. He's had ample opportunities to just be like, you know what? This is ridiculous. Get in their face, get tossed. See you tomorrow, Dave. We'll handle the rest of the game for you. Light a fire under these guys.
Jansen hasn't hit 97 in a game since 2017 for what it's worth. So that's a cool little stat.
Interesting.
Yeah. Regular season 2017 also.
And with Gratterall, I need to start seeing him miss some bats. I've never seen a pitcher throw 102 and not fool a single hitter. But we have to be patient with him because this is his spring training right now because he didn't pitch in spring training. So this is going to be the next 5 or 6 outings. It'll be spring for Gratterall. I need to see more movement on that slider and that fastball that I just mentioned. I know Robert said he views him as a high leverage guy, so we got to see it.
Here's a question.
Go ahead.
I was going to change subjects, but go ahead.
Just real quick. I was just going to say, it's nice that Gratterall has Dustin May on his team because Dustin May has experience of not being able to miss bats at 101 and then taking it to next year and missing bats at 101. So those two need to connect.
Yes. Here's a question. Are we ever going to see Joe Kelly? Like, what's going on with him?
Forgot about him. I already forgot about him. I don't know
as
what the
maybe
hell's
He's
going on.
got 2 murals in Los Angeles, and he's pitched
Yeah.
0 games this year.
Yeah.
maybe the biggest anti-Joe Kelly guy there is. I just don't see how there's room for him on this team. Like, you go up and down the bullpen right now, and Dennis Santana, he deserves to be there. And
Scotty
Scott
Ice has been pitching well.
Alexander is doing good. He
Yeah.
deserves to be there. I don't see where there's room for Joe Kelly right now. Who
And
do you
David
get rid
Price
of?
is pitching well as well.
And
Yeah, that was nice to see.
Tony Gonsolin is on the IL, and you have to get him in there before Kelly.
Well, I don't think
injury.
Gonsolin has even resumed throwing yet, which is kind of concerning.
Well, neither has Kelly, but I'm just saying, like, if they're on the same
Yeah.
timetable, Gonsolin gets the priority.
Yeah, we haven't had a Joe Kelly update in forever. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, he might not pitch for them this season. He could be a DFA candidate. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
So some other things around baseball. One of them is Vince Scully was gifted a World Series ring by the Dodgers. Definitely love seeing that.
That was cool. Also, Kike.
Kike got his
Kike
ring
got
as
his
well.
ring.
But why are you wearing Red Sox stuff, Kike? That is.
I mean,
that's
what do you want him to do?
Just don't wear any Red Sox stuff. Just wear.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he got it like at the stadium. So
Yeah, it looked like he was in the dugout.
yeah.
Fair enough. Alex Bregman is on the list right now for biggest like losers of the week appearance wise. He's rocking cornrows right now.
Saw that.
And it's
Ooh.
disgusting. And it's not helping the Houston Astros, who have now lost 9 out of 10, and they've fallen to last place in the AL West.
But noted joke reporter Michael Schwab said they were the best team in baseball about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 5 games in.
Yeah.
When the A's were probably like 0-5, and now they're in first.
Yeah.
They lost to the Rockies today, didn't they?
Yep.
They did.
And then Tatis Jr. Didn't talk about this, but I'll bring it up now. He made a comment saying that I think it was after the first game, he was like, "This feels like a World Series atmosphere." Tatis Jr., you've never even advanced past the NLDS. How would you know what the World Series feels like?
Yeah, I think he was being a little hyperbolic there. I mean, he was saying, this is what I would imagine a World Series game to feel like. But you're right. You can't really say that unless you've actually been there. Dave Roberts made the comment, I think that we have, or was it? No, it was Justin Turner, that we have basically 19 World Series games with the Padres.
Did say that, and I wish he never did.
Yeah,
I love it.
I give Tatis a pass. I like the kid.
I don't know what's going on with him. We'll dive more into it in a few minutes with Danny, but he's off to a bad start. And obviously injuries have to play a factor in that, but the defense is just out of control. And it's not so much
really
the
bad
range, it's the arm. He just does not throw accurate.
Yeah, well, we can talk to Danny Vietti about that here in a minute.
Yep. Is there anything else around Major League Baseball or Dodgers wise you guys wanted to discuss before we move on to the interview or the pre-show?
No, I just think it's remarkable that the start that the Dodgers have had, and like we said, they haven't really played up to their full potential and aren't fully healthy. So that's a scary thought if you are in the NL West or the rest of Major League Baseball, that this team is, has the best record in baseball or close to it, and they're not even at their full potential yet.
Completely agree. The Dodgers could be 17-1 without Cody Bellinger for most of the season and without hitting well. That says it all.
Yeah, I can't wait for Bellinger to be back. I feel like June is probably when he'll return. Hopefully sooner.
Oh, no, I think we'll see him in May for sure.
May? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the stress fractures, the tricky.
Well, it's a hairline fracture.
We know
He could play with those. He could play. He could play. If it was the playoffs, I promised you he'd be in the lineup.
Well, we know that the Dodgers are going to take more care of their players than the Padres have.
Exactly. So. They'll take their time.
I've had several hairline fractures, and you can definitely play through it. If it, like I said, if it was the playoffs, you'd see him out there.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I want to give a shout out to In the Clutch Apparel. They're sending us some awesome merch. So go to intheclutch.com. They have really cool t-shirts, not only for Dodgers, but MLB, NBA, soccer. your city, Los Angeles, up north, all around the U.S. Support for the Incline is brought to you by Manscaped today, the best in men's below the waist grooming. Baseball is back, baby. So dust off your mini cleats, head over to the baseball field. But before you do that, go on over to manscaped.com because we're hooking you up with a promo code today. Just use the code INCLINE20 and you'll get 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. They hooked us up with a bunch of awesome stuff like this lawnmower 3.0. It's got some of the smoothest precision there is right now in the game, and I highly recommend it, especially if you have sensitive skin. They also have some other great materials as well, like this ball deodorant or this ball toner. So they know how to treat their balls, that's for sure. So that's just a reminder. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code INCLINE20, 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. You're not going to regret it, trust me. Dodgers, Padres, round 2. But we didn't want to do it alone this week, so we brought on the senior social producer for CBS Sports MLB and the host of the Wake and Rate podcast. It's Danny Vietti. And how you doing, Danny? Thank you for coming on the Incline. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a couple weeks now. Like I told you off air, I apologize about the mistake last week, but I'm glad we could make up for it this week.
Of course, and we forgive you. So we know you have a big Padres following as well as the rest of MLB in general, and we kind of want to get your takeaways from the first go around of this Dodgers Padres series. Obviously, it lived up to the hype. It was some of the most exciting games we saw this season. So what was your perspective on all that?
There was a couple different nuances for me. The first one being, I think we all got a little cheated just because Belly wasn't out there for the Padres. They have their own injuries. Tatis is coming off his injury. I would really just love to see both of these teams at full strength. That said, how many times has that ever happened in Major League Baseball? It seems like somebody's always going to be injured. You know, it's rare that two teams go at it, especially in that big time of a game at their highest strength. So I think just personally, it was as exciting as it was. I think we all got cheated a little bit just because they weren't at their full strength. That said, I thought both teams could have walked away from that series thinking glasses half full. Obviously, if you're the Dodgers, I mean, you're the reigning champs and you just beat a really good Padres team on the road, 2 out of 3, and you didn't have Belly. That's pretty impressive right there. If you're the Padres and you're trying to take away positives, you're thinking, look, you stole 1 out of 3, you stole that last game, and Tatis didn't swing the bat well at all. He had 1 hit all series. He had more errors than he did hits. And I think just getting that 1 win was huge just morale-wise. I think if you get swept at home for a series, that's tough to come back from. So I think both teams could walk away with positives.
I mean, speaking of getting swept, the Padres just got swept by the Milwaukee Brewers. So I guess they went a little too hard in that Dodgers series. So the Dodgers are now 14-4 after splitting with the Mariners. The Padres are coming into Dodger Stadium now with a 10-10 record. And these pitching matchups, they're very familiar. So I'll read them right now for you guys. Game 1, Walker Buehler against Ryan Weathers. Game 2, Clayton Kershaw against Yu Darvish. Game 3, Trevor Bauer against Blake Snell. And then the final matchup will be Dustin May against Joe Musgrove. So, Jake, David, what are your takeaways from the series and these pitching matchups?
I will start off by saying this. During the playoffs last year, when the Padres advanced to the division round, I was a little thrown off by how crazy the city of San Diego went. And the three of us had our own takes on how we felt about that. The thing that I don't really subscribe to is the Padres fan that will celebrate something like that, a wild card win to advance to the division round, but then criticize the Dodgers for winning, a fake trophy. So I just don't get that sort of split with Padres fans. But I think I differ from David and Kevin on this one. When I was watching the Padres series, I felt like this is really good for baseball. Like, it was such an electric atmosphere at Petco Park. You had fans who were finally able to, support a Padres team that is, right there in the NL West. Arguably, the Dodgers and the Padres are the top two teams in the majors when fully healthy. So to me, it was a really great thing for baseball, for the NL West, because for years the Dodgers have sort of dominated the NL West, 8 straight titles, NL West titles. And so for the Padres, to have the offseason that they did, to go out and get the guys like Snell and Darvish and Musgrove and really make a run at the Dodgers in the NL West, I was, totally on board with how the atmosphere was at Petco Park for the first series.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. First off, that series was very, very fun to watch. The Padres definitely came to play. It is good for baseball in that sense, for sure. I really enjoyed the pitching performances from both sides. Kershaw pitched great. Darvish pitched great. Bauer pitched great. Snell pitched okay. And I thought Ryan Weathers did really well. The pitch count got up on him a little bit. He only made it through 3 most of the time it's bad. And the last thing I'll say to your point about the Padres fans, celebrating and acting like it's the World Series. I angered the entire internet of the San Diego Padres fan base this past week. Most of it was in good fun. Sometimes I'll just talk online, it's Twitter, it's whatever. But man, I have never angered a crowd more than I did this past weekend. And I'm looking forward to doing it again, frankly. Some of them are a little overboard in their responses to me, but it's all in good fun on my end, and I had a good time online. I know I made it to the Ben and Woods show as the dipshit tweet of the week, so I'm gonna put that one on my mantle for sure.
Good stuff, David. So yeah, Danny mentioned that Tatis Jr. only had 1 hit. He went 1 for 12 in that series with 6 strikeouts. The 1 hit was a home run off Walker Buehler. And it doesn't look like Tatis Jr.'s looked much better in that Brewers series. So, Danny, I was curious, kind of like, do you think the Padres rushed him back too soon?
Yeah, it's tough, because 1, I'm not a doctor. 2, I don't know how his body's feeling. So I'll answer the question, but just, take it with a grain of salt that I don't know what's going on with his body. I think it's going to be the biggest challenge for him isn't going to be physical right now, even though he is dealing with that shoulder injury. And we had a conversation with Dr. Jesse Morris, who works with sports medicine, has been for years, and he's worked with professional athletes for years. He told us straight up, he said he needs surgery. He said he compared it to Belly's shoulder injury from last year during the playoffs. He said it's not going to heal itself. It's not going to heal naturally. He needs surgery. But at this point, why get surgery now and end your season of the entire 21 season when you could try and play it out and see what you could do with that shoulder and then come the offseason and then have surgery? So I get that aspect of it. So in that regard, if you're going to try and play, I think his biggest obstacle isn't going to be physical. It's going to be the mental aspect, because when you're not going at 100% and you're constantly thinking about that one part of your body that's weighing you down, it's hard to get past. And then now all of a sudden he's having trouble in the field. He was having trouble in the field before he went down with his shoulder injury. So now he's got 2 other aspects that are, feeding through one ear, going out the other, and the other one's going through that ear and going out the other. Those are 2 aspects he didn't really deal with last year. He didn't deal with shoulder injuries. He didn't deal with fielding issues. He has more fielding errors this year than he did all of last year. It's tough. So I think just for him and how he's going to be able to overcome it, it's just going to have to be that mental aspect of the game. And unfortunately, that's the biggest challenge in baseball, as it always is.
That's right. I agree with you there. So Manny Machado, he actually had a huge series against the Dodgers. He ended up going 6 for 12, 2 stolen bases, scored 4 runs, and he continued to get base hits off Trevor Bauer. So I wanted anyone to answer this. Do you think Trevor Bauer is going to make any adjustments? Because Bauer talked this big game like he was going to own Manny Machado, and he has not done it yet.
Well, he kept him in the park, and that's what he said after the game. So I think, it's all about damage control. It's no question Machado is one of the most talented hitters in baseball. And with his past success against Bauer, I don't know what Bauer can do, honestly. I mean, he tried to mix in the breaking stuff more than the fastballs. And at this point, it's just, if you can get him out, you can get him out. But if you keep him in the park, it's a win.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there, David, on that. I think it was Joe Davis during the broadcast told a story about how when Machado was with Baltimore and Bauer was with Cleveland, that essentially Machado owns Bauer's fastball. And so each time he threw a fastball, Machado would crush it. And so when you eliminate the fastball as a hitter, if you can eliminate one pitch knowing full well that you may not see that pitch and just look for the breaking stuff, it becomes a little bit easier and maybe even more of an advantage. But I'll tell you, man, like watching Machado hit, I've never seen a guy hit more singles into the 6 hole. And it boggles me because I'm like, we have the shift, put 3 guys in the 6 hole and just stand there, because he hits singles all the time there, and he got a couple off Bauer in that game.
Yeah, I agree. If you're Bauer, you're thinking, 1, you kept him in the yard, and 2, if Turner's maybe inched over a couple more feet to his left, maybe he makes those plays too. Granted, Machado came into this week with the hardest hit percentage in Major League Baseball. It would be a tough play either way because, I mean, those were hit pretty hard to the left side. But if Turner's, have a couple steps to his left, maybe those 2 are outs instead of singles.
One of the weirdest phenomenons going on with Blake Snell is just his inability to seem to go past the 5th or into the 6th inning. And I feel like as a Padres fan, you paid a big price to get him. You gave up one of the top prospects in Patino, and you need this guy to eventually get into the 6th or 7th inning, or else you're going to start burning your bullpen every time he goes out there. So I wanted to ask Danny, are there any concerns with Blake Snell, his longevity? Do you think he will get the mechanics straight so that he can actually be more efficient? Or do you think this is just going to be the trend we see with Blake Snell, a 4 or 5 inning pitcher consistently?
I think that's who he is. And it's not to say that he can't change his pitching style, but at this point in his career, American League Cy Young a few years ago, it's tough. He's a strikeout pitcher. And unfortunately, what I didn't like to see in that Dodgers Padres series was he's getting a lot of 3-ball counts. And it's fine. If you have high pitch counts and you're just a high pitch count, big strikeout guy, that's fine if you want to wiggle around after you get him 0-2, 1-2. But to start off guys 3-1, 2-1 every single at bat, that's when you're going to get into trouble. So if you want to go for the strikeout, go for your 10 Ks a game, that's fine. You're not going to pitch as deep into games as your coach probably wants you to, but get ahead of guys. And he didn't do that. So I don't have a concern in regard to, because I think the Padres bullpen is plenty fine, even if he pitches 5-6 innings. He hasn't pitched into the 7th inning since, I believe it's May of 2019. So it's not the end of the world if he doesn't get to that 7th inning, because I think their bullpen is good enough to finish the job. At the same time, you're not going to have too much success starting guys off 2-1, 3-1 every single at bat, especially like a lineup that is the Dodgers.
Danny, if I could follow up with you on Blake Snell, you say that he, that's the type of pitcher he is, 4 or 5 innings. I'm just curious, why is he so shocked every time the manager comes to the mound to take him out? Like, it just seems like he's always frustrated and upset with whether it's Kevin Cash or Jace Tingler. We've seen a few shots of Blake Snell kind of maybe even jarring with Tingler in the dugout. I'm not sure what's going on there, but if that's the type of pitcher he is, obviously he's a competitor, so I get why he would be frustrated, but does he expect more from himself, I guess?
Yeah, it could be both. It could be, when you're in the moment like that, and granted, I'm not speaking for Blake. I haven't had the conversation with him, but what you said, he's a competitor. He's not happy with his own performance, more than likely, especially like in that game against Pittsburgh. They took him out in the 1st inning. It was 2/3 inning, 3 runs and 3 walks. And he left the game with the bases loaded. And he was frustrated. I will say, I actually thought Blake Snell had a case. I would have given him one more hitter. If he walks a runner in with the bases loaded, then you take him out. But to me, Blake Snell, you're expecting a lot from him, and you want him to pitch deeper into games. And so when you're taking him out after 3 runs in the 1st inning, granted, he pitched terribly up to that point, but I think he earned one more hitter just with the stuff he has. So I think he actually had reason for frustration in that Pittsburgh series. And then obviously, everything stems from that World Series too. I mean, just pitching for the Rays for that long and being taken out before being able to see that third time through the order for so long. I think he all of a sudden gets sent to San Diego and he's like, okay, this is still sustaining itself. This is still happening to me. So I think that's where the frustration is boiling from. It's really just leftovers that he never really was outspoken with Tampa Bay, and now he's with San Diego, and it's still happening. And so maybe he's being a little bit more charismatic on the mound.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on that. I like to see that attitude from a pitcher. I'd much rather see, frustration after being pulled or having a poor outing, rather than being complacent and looking like, oh well. So I think Blake Snell gets a bad rap for that. I think he has a case pretty much every time. Granted, he should try to pitch deeper into games, but at the same time, you look at the Dodgers lineup; they're leading the MLB in pitches seen this year. The Padres are second, but this Dodgers lineup is patient and they're relentless. So any pitcher getting into the seventh inning against the Dodgers is a huge accomplishment this year. So look, I think Snell's going to be fine. I think if they get 5.5 clean innings out of him, I think they're going to take that as a win.
All right, I had another question. So I think the three of us here have kind of noticed that the bad MLB umpires seem to be following the Dodgers wherever they're playing. And I felt like they were especially atrocious in this Dodgers Padres series for both sides. I'll be honest. There was one game where I think the Padres were rewarded a run technically, but they still got shut out, that 2-0 game. But I wanted your takeaways, Danny. Do you think the umpires, their quality is diminishing, or do you think they're just rusty?
Yeah, my personal opinion is I think it's the same as it's always been. However, we're seeing the opportunity for robot umpires getting closer and closer. That whole, things in the rearview mirror appear closer, whatever that phrase is. I think it's one of those type things where we can start to see it getting larger and larger, and it's a larger possibility every single time. And so more and more people are kind of jumping on a bandwagon. I think umpires are as good or as bad as they've always been. I will say in that series, I think it was Phil Cuzzy that had the game with Profar and Kershaw when they were drawn back. That was a horrible, horrible call. The fact that I'm not gonna comment on Profar and what his decision making was. I will say the point of the rule. I don't blame Profar necessarily or Kershaw or any of the players. I blame the rule itself, because the rule is supposed to help hitters. They're trying to swing a bat, and if the catcher's glove obstructs the swing, then you get a path to first base. But he swung after the ball hit the mitt.
Yeah.
So it completely negates the rule. The rule doesn't apply here. And the fact that they gave Profar that base is ridiculous. So to answer your question, I think umpires are just as bad or just as good as they've always been. That said, that series, it was not good. For all those three games, their zones were pretty bad and inconsistent all series long.
So are you a robot ump guy, or are you in-person ump guy?
I've gone back and forth. I'm still in favor of the human aspect. That said, I believe each team should have 2 pitches that they can challenge on. What I don't want to have happen is 2-minute delays for each challenge. It should be it should be based on the K zone. It should be, hey, do you want to, hypothetically, Dave Roberts wants to challenge this pitch. They look at K zone, it's a strike on K zone, boom, continue the game. Like, it shouldn't be this 1 minute, 2-minute delay. It should be the umpire looks up at the booth gives them a thumbs up or thumbs down for a strike or ball. That's my opinion.
Yeah, just like in tennis. I mean, how quickly do we get the feedback from that if the ball hit the line or not? But I agree with you. I think it's as bad as it's always been. But what has become increasingly more obvious is the spotlight on it. Like, every broadcast now has a K zone. It used to be where, like, ESPN, it was like a special thing, and they would only have it up for like certain at bats or whatever. But now it's up there the entire time. Not only that, you've got, Twitter accounts out there that are specifically, focused on tracking umpires and their accuracy. So I just think that, we're just noticing how bad it is more now than we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same viewpoint I've had on here for the last year. I'm not in favor of robot umpires. I'm really not. I'm in favor of just getting better umpires. It blows my mind how some of these guys are still umpiring games. I mean, that performance in that series all around was abysmal. I've never heard a broadcasting crew. I was listening to the Dodgers broadcast, obviously, but Joe Davis and Orel Hershiser, every inning were commenting, "Oh my God, that was awful." Like every pitch. And I've never seen that. I think it is amplified a little bit this year, but I mean, these guys need to tighten it up. They really need to tighten it up.
Yeah, there needs to be more turnover. Like I've said before, this is
Yeah.
like, Supreme Court justices. They never go away. They're just once you're in the majors, you go there until you basically are carted off the field.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I wanted everyone's takeaways from that first game of the series where the Dodgers ended up winning in extra innings 11-6. I want to know, first of all, answer this. Was it the game of the year thus far in MLB? And then second, just follow up with like a couple takeaways from that game because there was a lot of exciting moments.
Yeah, I think maybe not that game is the best game. I mean, to this point, sure, because we're only 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the season. It's not saying much. Who knows what happens down the line here? But that series, I mean, it's going to be definitely the series of the year. It's going to be really hard to top the tension back and forth. And whether you think it's a rivalry or not, it's got to start somewhere. And I personally have always been in favor of, like, I understand the Dodgers and Giants have been rivals for so long, and I understand there's history between two sides. To me, I like watching a series that has more current relevancy and current tension relevancy, as opposed to, well, the Giants and Dodgers were rivals back in New York 50, 60, 80 years ago. Like, I don't care about that. I want to watch guys that hate each other right now. I want to watch guys like and anyone that takes exception to whatever happens, like last year with the Trent Grisham, Dave Roberts banter. Like, I want to see that. I don't care what that Pete Rose got hit intentionally 60 years ago or whatever it was. Like, I care about what's happening right now.
Yeah, that was a great game. And there were a few moments there at the end where you had guys like Dennis Santana and David Price walking a tightrope and getting out of jams. And it seemed like the Padres threatened to score a lot and then can't get that extra hit, sac fly, or fielder's choice ground out, something to get the run in. And so I just thought it was an amazing job by the Dodgers bullpen. I mean, the Padres bullpen's great too, and they were good up until a point, until the end there. But man, there was some real, I mean, that was high drama.
I agree with Danny. This rivalry or whatever you want to call it may not have the historical significance or the history of the Dodgers Giants, but in terms of today's game, it definitely does. These two teams don't like each other. It's very clear that these two teams do not like each other. You saw Mateo take exception to Santana hitting him, even though that was absolutely not intentional. Obviously, last year with the Gratterall hat flip and waving goodbye and the whole scrum there. So that's fun. It's fun to see Kershaw yelling at Profar. I'm excited that we got, I think it's 16 more games of this series for the rest of the year. And look, as you can see on my shirt, I'm a Michigan guy. Obviously, the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry is a rivalry, but we haven't beat them in football in 8 or 9 years. That doesn't mean the good old-fashioned hate between the two is any less fun. And I think that's what this is in this rivalry, regardless if the Padres, aren't necessarily on top right now, obviously getting swept in the NLDS, losing this past series. So it's still going to be a fun time regardless of the result.
Yeah, actually, the Kershaw-Darvish game was the top game for me. I live for pitchers duels, and that totally lived up to the hype. I mean, Kershaw went 6 scoreless, struck out 8 Padres, only allowed 2 hits. And then Darvish went 7 strong, struck out 9 Dodgers. And the one run he gave up was to Kershaw, bases loaded walk. So that was crazy how Darvish kind of lost command there. But they both had great games. And then it came down to Mookie Betts making the 10% probability catch to shatter the Padres' hopes and dreams. That was definitely the catch of the year for me thus far. I don't know how he was able to get that ball, but he's Superman out there.
And what's funny to me is Cody Bellinger makes that catch too, for the record. So this, once Bellinger comes back and you put Taylor in left field, Dodgers outfield is the no-fly zone again.
Yeah, that catch, when I saw it live, I thought, oh my God, he dropped it. Like it was a trap or something. And then just to see his reaction, he knew it. He knew it. The ball didn't touch the ground. Just an unbelievable game-saving catch. And I made a point on Twitter where it's sort of like the Dodgers and Padres in, walk-off defensive plays. Remember last year with Chris Taylor throwing out Trent Grisham at the plate to end the game, a 7-2 double play. It's just, the traditional walk-off is exciting as well, but when you get defensive walk-offs, that's next level for me.
What was so remarkable to me was the trajectory of the hit, because that's the most difficult ball to play on if you're an outfielder. I was never an outfielder. I was a pitcher, but I played a little bit of outfield in like high school, and I talked with a couple different players after the Mookie catch to kind of get their perspectives. And they told me, they're like, the fact that he got that good of a read off that ball was missile to center field. He could have taken a step backwards. He could have taken a step forward or to his right. Like, it's very easy to misread that ball. He knew exactly where that ball was going to be as soon as it was hit off the bat. That was what was most impressive. And then the cool thing too, I think, was the respect that Mookie Betts has around the baseball world, because there was somebody that put this out on Twitter that said, did Mookie really catch that ball? I think they were kind of reaching for something because they were hoping the Padres would win. And all the comments were like, Mookie caught that ball. Mookie made that, because people know the athleticism and the respect this guy deserves. And so everybody was like, Mookie caught that ball because he's Mookie Betts.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anything you guys wanted to also bring up in this upcoming series that maybe some keys or adjustments either side makes? Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about that.
I wonder if the atmosphere will be different at Dodger Stadium versus Petco Park. I mean, you certainly have the sort of excitement, anticipation, maybe even a little desperation from Padres fans, that anxiousness of wanting to sort of beat the big brother and take down Goliath. And the Dodgers coming off World Series win, will the fans be more laid back? Will they not be as intense? I hope not. I mean, I'm really hoping that the Dodgers fans come with the same intensity that the Padres fans do, because as we saw last year, it was dead without fans. I mean, you think about watching a game on TV without fans. I thought watching last year, like, oh, what's the difference, right? We're watching baseball on TV, but it really makes a difference. And you only really realize what a difference it makes until you don't have it. And then you get it back again and you have that low hum throughout the whole game, or just the excitement at each at bat, the fans screaming, and they don't have that, artificial piped in crap noise that they were blaring throughout the playoffs and throughout the season. So I hope that it's going to be as intense. But my initial take is that it may not have that same intensity that Petco Park had.
Yeah, I think it will. I don't know if it'll be, quite like the first inning of that first game of the series at Petco, where that legitimately felt like a elimination playoff game. Because as of last year, the Dodgers fans have won the World Series. So I think as a collective fan base, I think that just makes everybody take a deep breath of sorts. And that doesn't mean they're not going to be excited. That doesn't mean they're not going to be loud. It's just not as, anxiety filled and every game. Yeah, exactly. It's not every game has the same meaning. And that's not to discredit any other fan base or the Dodgers fan base. I think that's just, for me at least, every other game isn't quite the same as what it was last year, at least for this year.
Yeah, it's your point. The Dodgers have had that monkey on their back for years of not being able to come through with a World Series. At the end of the day, a series against San Diego, who haven't beaten you in years, does it really hold that much weight? Probably, like, hypothetically, let's say San Diego takes 2 or 3. Is it really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things? Not really. So to your point, I think Dodger fans have, Dodgers players really have kind of earned some wiggle room here. And with San Diego, by the way, if you're talking about like what adjustments they need to make, they actually had more than 10 more opportunities with runners in scoring position in the last series. They just didn't cash in. They were terrible with 2 outs and runners in scoring position, or no outs with runners in scoring position. They hit 200 in that series. On the flip side, the Dodgers hit 260, which isn't astronomically great, but it's a lot better than what San Diego is able to provide. So neither team hit the ball well, but Los Angeles cashed in on their opportunities a lot more than San Diego did. So I'm curious to see, especially with a team like the Padres right now, they're struggling against good pitching. They've done a good job, so like against Arizona, they took 3 or 4. They've done a good job against below average pitching. But the last series against the Dodgers, it was Buehler, Kershaw, Bauer. Those are 3 really tough pitchers. Not many guys hit those. After that, it was Corbin Burns and Brendan Woodruff.
Yeah.
I was drawing a blank on Woodruff, of course. Guy's been slept on for years. Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns. They're really struggling against good arms right now. And you're not going to get a break with the Dodgers rotation either. And if they want to make any type of noise in the playoffs, they're going to have to hit good pitching.
That's a great point.
The thing I'm very interested in is these teams the first 3 matchups are all repeats. So, and these hitters just saw these pitchers on both sides. So I'm interested to see how, both sides hitters react to that. Obviously getting a second look at a pitcher is going to be, in theory, a little bit easier than the first look. So I think, whoever capitalizes on the, the prior at bats and making adjustments when they failed in those first at bats, I think is going to come out on top in each individual game.
So let's use the final few minutes here. Danny, I wanted to get your thoughts on anything else around Major League Baseball in general that stood out to you, whether it's players, teams, a weird rule, whatever.
Honestly, this is kind of the obvious one. It's just how nice it is. And you touched on it. I think we all touched on it already. It's just the fact that fans are back in the stands, and all the players for years have talked about how we don't listen to the fans. We block it out, clear the mechanism, blah, blah, blah. Man, they feed off it. And as a fan, too, to be back in the stands, I haven't had the opportunity to get out to a regular season yet. Regular season game, I was able to make it out to spring training, which was delightful. But just that aspect has been missing. And there's different aspects of the game that I think we all missed, but we completely forgot that it was even part of the game. So like the crowd noises, the different interactions between player and fans, like something as simple as Mike Trout out in the outfield in Kansas City. There was this Los Angeles Angels fan that was a little kid. It was cheering him on all game long. And Mike Trout is the end of the game. The game ended on a strikeout. It wasn't as if it was the game ball that he threw up to him. Mike Trout went over to that fan and gave him his batting gloves. And that's what we missed. That's what I missed. I miss seeing the interaction between fan and player. I think that's just been really great to see. It's something I really missed as a fan. I really miss seeing that in baseball for the past year and a half.
Yeah, and we saw what happened, similar interaction with Freddie Freeman and a Phillies fan who, I forget if he caught the home run ball or his dad caught the home run ball, but the kid ended up giving it to a younger kid. And then Freddie Freeman had him come by the next day and meet him on the field, which is very cool. So I agree. It's great to see. And for my, big thing around Major League Baseball, I'm just super thrilled to see all these young stars, finally coming out, like Acuna, Bryce Harper's having a great year, and just Soto just landed on the DL, but Soto, Ohtani's been exciting to watch. All these, up and coming guys are basically all having good years, and they're all fun to watch, and that's been my one thing.
Yeah, my one thing is just watching teams that you wouldn't normally expect to be successful so far that have had early success, like the Seattle Mariners. And then there are teams out there that, Boston looked like it was about to have another abysmal season, and then they turned it around and ripped off like 7-8 in a row. The A's just won an insane game. They won 11 in a row after they looked just awful against the Dodgers. It looked like that they had no business being on a major league field. Just these these teams that have been able to rally around. And it just goes to show you that, when you have a full 162, let's, pump the brakes and allow for teams to kind of iron things out. Of course, last year it was a sprint, 60 games. If you started out with, a bad record, it was hard to turn things around. But because there are so many games and so many opportunities to turn things around, it's been nice to see some of these teams right the ship. And then for teams like the Yankees, everyone had them, being the class of the American League, and they've really struggled, not only starting pitching but offense. And so those are storylines that I've been following so far this season.
David, do you want to ask Danny about Chris Paddock?
Oh yeah. So what's going on with this guy? We saw him pitch very well in 2019, and there were early comparisons, obviously premature, of he's going to be the next big thing. He's their Kershaw. He's whatever. And after basically 2019, he doesn't look like the same pitcher. I don't know what's going on with him. Depends how you look at his outing yesterday. It was only 1 earned run, but 5 runs came across. He pitched, I think it was 5 innings and 3 runs against the Pirates. But he just doesn't look like he has confidence there. I'm just wondering what your take is on this guy and how he can right the ship.
Yeah, he's been a curious case, that's for sure. And when I take a deeper dive on his numbers and why he's struggling, it just comes down to the simplest fastball command. His changeup hitters are hitting below the Mendoza line. His fastball, they're crushing. And then when you look at his hot zones too on StatCast, his changeup typically stays below the zone, but he can actually get away with bad changeup because it's that nasty. But with his fastball, it's very straight, it's very flat. And so when he leaves it over the zone, it gets crushed. And not to mention his breaking ball is not always there. He's always been like a 2-pitch pitcher. And then that breaking ball is kind of finding its way. And it's good sometimes, but you need to be able to have 2 really strong pitches. When you're throwing that hard and you're that dominant, you need to have 2 really good pitches.
Yeah.
If you have a third one, great. But you need 2 that's going to be there day in and day out. And that hasn't been the case. He typically has his changeup most days, but his fastball is really over the plate. It's been over the plate for the past 2 seasons. Anyone that says that he's the next Clayton Kershaw needs to pipe down a little bit, because nobody can be Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, that's right.
But really, it just comes down to fastball location and fastball command. It just has not been there.
Yeah. Well, it looks like they're going to need him to figure that out soon with Morahone and looks like Lamet going to be out for a while. So we'll see.
That's right. Well, we got this exciting 4-game series coming up. Dodgers, Padres. Should be a battle. I want to see more benches clear. That's what I live for as well. Danny, thank you so much for coming on the Incline. Hope you have a great rest of your MLB season. We look forward to all the content you're about to pump out. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Jake, David, Kevin, I appreciate having me on, man. This was fun. Let's do it again.
Thanks,
Definitely.
Danny. Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Yes. If there's any final thoughts you have, Danny, shout them out now.
No, man, this was fun. I enjoy, you mentioned, I have a big Padres following, which was completely unintentional. So it's nice to actually interact with Dodger fans for once. This has been cool.
Yeah. Right on.
Sweet.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Did you want to start a new chat?
We'll do a new chat.
Yeah.